Christmas! So to celebrate, we're rounding out our run of atypical Christmas films with the 1992 Tim Burton film, Batman Returns. We open up this week by talking about the marketing snafu that had McDonald's selling kids' toys for this grisly story of attempted child murder, and how the backlash led to the Joel Schumacher years, a much scarier place by many people's reckoning. We break down the ensemble cast one piece at a time and raise the question, is this the best we've seen in a Bat Pick? We had a couple Walken impressions. We raise some brows to the sexual content, and we have a good laugh at Batman's office supplies. We are a little bummed that this Christmas run is over. Could be worse though. Our nose could be gushing blood. Merry Christmas from hell of a picture. Welcome to Hell of a Picture, a weekly movie podcast where we discuss an unforgettable film, and if it truly is a hell of a picture. My name is Andrew Bartlett, and I'm sitting across the internet, as I do each and every week, from the Batman to my Robin, Mr. David Hollinshurst.
Okay.
You know, even though there's no Robin in this movie.
No, there is not. There is. I mean, I thought maybe you might go Alfred Pennyworth in this, and I got to tell you, I really like the. This is the one guy who survives all of the Batmans up to the Nolan era. You know, they keep going back to the well with the same Alfred because he is a great Alfred. No disrespect to Michael Caine. I love me some Michael Caine, but the chap who plays Alfred in these movies, really great Alfred. Very grandfatherly. Very, very nice.
Yeah, Alfred Pennyworth, the actor's name, Michael Goff, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been around for a while, but he's definitely a unique character. So this week we're diving into Batman Returns. Yeah, I should have gone Alfred. But Batman Returns, it's the sequel to Batman, but it's Burton's second Batman, and it kind of concludes our little run here of atypical Christmas movies, because this is a Christmas movie, Batman movie that takes place during the holiday season. So that's why we chose it for this little sort of run that we're doing.
That's right. Yeah, it takes place entirely over the holidays. Centers around there's a tree lighting. There's a very nice sort of Christmas masquerade party. There's all kinds of wonderful, wonderful festivities, including child abduction, attempted child murder, several actual successful murders, and
that's correct.
All the things we associate with Christmas. So, echoes of biblical Christmas here for sure. So, a really great movie for the holidays. Maybe not so much for the kids, which we will get into because it was kind of expected to be, and boy, was it not. Yeah, it's a lot darker. Even though the first Batman is dark, this is a lot darker than sort of your what you would expect out of a Batman movie from the 80s. I guess this was the 90s, but 80s, early 90s, until we kind of switched into the Nolan era of sort of those darker, more adult Batman movies, So, but we'll get into that discussion. To start the podcast, as we do each week, why don't you hit us with the rundown, as this has been some time since I'm sure people have seen Batman Returns. So, it is Christmas time in Gotham, and not a creature is stirring, except, of course, for a hideous penguin man and his ultra-violent gang of circus performers who are out to abduct and murder all the city's firstborn children. And that's not all. The festive season is also assailed by conniving, power-hungry magnate Max Schreck, whose aspirations, motives, methods, and willingness to work with the penguin make him no less sinister. And lastly, our triumvirate of malignancy features beleaguered secretary Selina Kyle, whose near-death experience results in her becoming a bona fide, leather-clad, cat lady badass. Batman must contend with all three villains, all while navigating the choppy waters of superhero dating to save Christmas. Batman Returns was released in 1992 and directed by Tim Burton. It stars Michael Keaton as Batman / Bruce Wayne, Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman / Selena Kyle, Danny DeVito as the Penguin / Oswald Cobblepot, and Christopher Walken as Max Schreck. Now, if you haven't watched this movie in a while, I recommend watching it with the lights off. This is dark, occasionally gory, sexually laced, a truly gothic comic book film. And while the 1989 Batman had some of these elements, it was restrained by comparison. And Batman Returns saw Tim Burton totally unfettered, and there was backlash over the content of this film. Lest we forget, this was a McDonald's movie. I'm talking Happy Meals, cups, toys, the whole shebang. And people were pissed. And I gotta say, if you were expecting a movie for children, yeah, you might be pissed. Thankfully, my parents were not puritanical about that sort of thing. I had this movie on VHS. I watched the crap out of it. I had the poster on my wall. I absolutely loved it, even though I didn't understand a lot of the dialogue, and a lot was what was happening until later in life. As a part of the fallout to the moral outrage and the effect that this outrage had on toy sales, the series took a dramatic tonal shift in the next two installments. They handed the reins over to Joel Schumacher for Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and they would forego the macabre derangement of Burton for the animated stylistics that would become hallmarks of the series right up until the Nolan years. And that is your rundown.
Yeah, not to mention the, who did the Batman versus Superman? Oh my God.
Snyder, yeah.
Snyder, Jesus Christ. Yeah, the Snyder Batmans, and then the more recent The Batman with Robert Pattinson. There has been a slew, even just in our lifetime, of Batman movies. And I think
of Batman.
Yeah, and a lot of renditions and a lot of different directors' takes on it. I think maybe at one point we'll sort of do maybe a run of Batman and like a Batman from each sort of director's.
I would like that.
Nailed down, because Batman does definitely seem to be the superhero that people, I don't know if they relate to the most, but they definitely have sort of an affinity for kind of telling this story over and over, more so than any other. I feel like any other superhero.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm sure we can have the lab boys double check the numbers on that, but it does seem to be the most revisited of superheroes. Maybe that's just because it's the most bankable. I don't know. Maybe they've got something that tells them that it is the most profitable. But Burton's Batman. Let's talk specifically about Burton's Batman, because one of the things that I love about this, and I don't know where this begins, because you do see it in other iterations, other sort of mediums with Batman. The animated series in the 90s that we grew up with on Saturday mornings, that used a similar motif, as did some of the comics. And what I'm talking about, there's this like kind of modernist 50s vibe. The aesthetic sort of blends eras and styles as it likes. Like the city's architecture, the cars, the style of dress. You've got a lot of men wearing hats. They all sort of say 50s. But at the same time, you've got these anachronistic elements to that, because Selena has an answering machine. Max Schreck has an office computer. Obviously, the Batman gadgetry has always been out of time. But, it's a comic book. I love that it embraces that. It doesn't have to subscribe to high fidelity temporality. It's created a perfect sort of gothic playground, and for these characters and stories, and that's good enough. You know what I mean? That's fine.
Yeah, those are my thoughts exactly. It's been a very long time since I've seen this Batman, but unlike you, I had the first Batman. The first Burton Batman on VHS, and that was the one for me that I rewatched like every week, just constantly. My mom's like verbatim say all the words and stuff. But Returns wasn't really on my revisit list, so it had been a few years since seeing this one. But like all I could think about on this rewatch was like how much of a comic book it was. It's like, it really is such a great rendition of a comic book, and the sets and the designs and the sort of, the glossing over facts and logistics and just the darkness of it. It definitely felt like I was reading a comic book, and, this kind of, there's sort of this fine line between a comic book and a cartoon. and the Batman Forever and the Batman and Robins kind of went to the cartoonish version of Batman versus sort of like a comic book rendition.
Yeah, it was almost like they were pulling on, like when they went to Joel Schumacher, they sort of pulled on some of the Adam West of it all. You know what I mean? Like there was almost that campiness to it. And this feels more like something that was written by Alan Moore, the great graphic novelist who did Watchmen and who would ultimately do some Batman graphic novels, I'm pretty sure. I think he did. I think he might have done the actual Dark Knight sort of graphic novel series of Batman, or I might be confusing it with George Miller.
No, the Killing Joke.
Killing Joke, right? That's what it was, which is awesome. There is an animated short film of that. I think it's about maybe like just under an hour and a half or something like that, but it is good, really good.
And that came out around the same time. That was in '88.
Was it? So, interesting. Okay, yeah. I thought that was a little later. Oh, fascinating. Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting time for Batman. Then I guess this was sort of the motif, and so you had the original Batman. It was a huge hit, and then we get this follow up, a tough act to follow for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that they do here to try to sort of to follow that is rather than going with sort of these two titans, you get a real ensemble effort here. And the question I would put to you right now. Is this the best cast of any Batman movie ever? On aggregate, all around. Maybe not the singular best people, or maybe, but as an aggregate, as a team, is this the tops?
Yeah, because I mean, you have the first Batman. It is really sort of just, you have the two, you have Vicky Vale, but like it is really just a Batman and Joker thing.
Yeah.
The Nolan ones, they have sort of a wide cast, but this was before Nolan was getting into the let's cast, Matt Damon in a secondary role as like, you know what I mean? Like massive stars just as like this random person. He was like felt like he was casting for the role versus the name. Yeah, I mean, this has some titans in it. And I would think that most of the whole film is just scenes with these four characters, the ones you mentioned, the Keaton, Pfeiffer, Walken, and Danny DeVito. I mean, I think it is like Michelle Pfeiffer just off the top is I mean, just captivating as Catwoman.
Absolutely. And like talking about the comic book aspect of like the cat part of her metamorphosis is kind of silly, like where she gets shoved out the window and then the cats are gnawing on her, so cat superpowers, of course. But the rest of her transition is so powerful that you quickly move past it. Like her madness is compelling. And that scene in her apartment where she goes bonkers, and you do see that metamorphosis that she takes on. Like it's so intense, and in very short order. And this is a tribute to Pfeiffer. You see how downtrodden Selena Kyle is, and you believe that she, what she feels, you feel. And then in equally short order, you see how commanding Catwoman is. And boy, you can debate the best Batman and the best Joker. That's a lively one. There is no debate about who the best Catwoman is. And, to be fair, there hasn't been strong contenders after the Fife or before the Fife. But even if there were, they would have to be something really special to rival her, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that metamorphosis, like you said, it is a bit over the top. But again, this goes back to the comic book aspect of the film, and I'm fine with all of that. Like, I can let all that go because it feels like I'm watching like a real life comic book come to life, or and it's leaning into that trope of putting like putting the glasses on a character and they just become unrecognizable, and like it's like
right.
I don't really you don't end up questioning how this like nerdy Selena Kyle can do gymnastics abilities like nobody else, or how can kill people like on a dime. But the film, but it's because the film is grounded in the comic book world, right? And Burton, he's established that from the get-go. He established it in the first Batman he did. And unlike the newer Batman films, which are really like leaning into that reality-based, aspect of a film, I guess, like there's Penguin is really big right now because of the HBO series, and it's like Colin Farrell plays like from what I haven't watched it yet. I've heard it's really great, but he plays like a crime boss, right? The Penguin in this kind of world, or the new Batman, is, you know, a crime boss, versus here he's like literally a penguin.
Yeah.
so I mean, that's like Danny DeVito. It's just perfect casting.
Yeah, and like, you know, the traditional sort of take on Penguin, even like in the older comics, is more like what you're talking about. Like, he is kind of
right.
He's a little sort of bird-like in his appearance, but he's not, you know, a monster as he is in this. Like, yeah, like he's exactly. He's so horrifying. He could be a villain in an actual horror movie, and, you know, not just visually either. Like, he is as monstrous indeed as he is in appearance. I mean, like we said, he's abducting children, for God's sakes. But somehow, despite that, he's also hilarious, and the way he moves between hilarity and horror is masterful, and a credit to De Niro. Like, the nose biting scene. My God.
You said De Niro? You said De Niro.
Sorry, DeVito.
DeVito.
Mixing up my Italian actors here. But yeah, the nose biting scene, you know, when he's sort of fake laughing first, you know, it's like, could be worse. My nose could be gushing blood. Like he's doing like that, you know, that fake jocular kind of take on it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I'm laughing my ass off at that. And then when he goes in to take a chomp, I am recoiling in disgust.
Oh, man.
And, you know, he's also lecherous as hell. Like, they do not hold back on the sexual anima of Oswald Cobblepot.
God.
In fact, this movie is not shy in that way at all. Catwoman just oozes sexuality. And I also really appreciate, like, Michael Keaton's awkward but not scared of it sort of portrayal of Batman, Bruce Wayne in intimate situations. It's more of a nuanced thing, but Catwoman and Penguin are just bam, sex.
Man, I love DeVito here. He's just so brilliantly cast, and it's this like disgusting portrayal. I mean, I couldn't stop staring at his teeth the whole time. Like, it's just like this.
Yeah, he's just oozing black stuff out of his mouth.
It's like, what is this? You know, but I love how you mentioned the sexuality of it, and it's like, Catwoman, I mean, she's a dominatrix, right? She's literally in black leather. She has a whip. Like, it's not, being an adult and watching it now, you're like, it's very clear what that is, you know? And then there's all these sexual innuendos and like that are so on the nose. It's like, you know, the pussy I was waiting for. And it's like, she's laying on the bed.
That's right.
You know, it's like, well, and like the licking herself, I'm just going to clean myself here. And it's like, what is this happening? You could understand why the you know, the upper movie execs would probably think this was somewhat problematic, you know, when they're trying to sell Happy Meals. But the whole backstory of the Penguin is forgotten when kind of the story picks up. And, you know, like, he kind of looks like he's 50, but the timeline suggests that he's like 34. I guess that's kind of fine. But
that's right.
But like, again, like, some of the logistics of the film, you sort of let go because you're in this comic book world. Like, where is he getting the funding for these elaborate, like, you know, devices, and like, you know, he's the giant duck, and he has like all this, like, he's creating all this. He has this whole crew of freaks that, like, where do they come from? It's like, I guess it would be because it's the, like, I guess I missed that when Bruce Wayne is like researching and all like the freaks of the circus or whatever.
So Penguin had found his way into, like, you know, sort of a freak show in a circus, and from there, like, you know, he does sort of build up this following of acolytes that sort of come with him, and addressing the duck. Now, you know, I just want to get to that. So his lair is in, like, sort of like, you know, the caverns of this old abandoned aquatic sort of amusement park. So the duck, that's where that comes from, you know. So the script is airtight. Yeah. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's bulletproof. You can try to find your holes, but I have something for everything. I promise you.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I guess I sort of missed that. I sort of got it when Bruce Wayne was like looking at but again, this idea that, you know, the previous movie, like, the Joker is a criminal, wants power, wants money. Yes. very like straightforward. Penguin character, he just seems like he's just pissed. Like he doesn't really like. There's not really a driving force beside like getting revenge on his parents who are already dead. Like
and getting laid. He wants to get laid.
Right. Okay. The section. Yeah. Gotcha. So horny, man, that guy.
He is, yeah. Oh, he is very horny. And yeah, no, I mean, like he's mad about his parents, and that's kind of a relatable motivation because our lead character,
Sure.
Batman, I mean, that's the driving force behind Batman. But interestingly, we go a surprisingly long time at the start of this movie with very little Batman,
Yes.
which is weird but good. Like, because they take the time to, like, we know who Batman is. What they do at the beginning of this movie is they show us the hereto unknowns. So they spend the time with Catwoman, you spend the time with Penguin, so that these characters are fully realized and matter to us. And I love, though, that after we get through that preamble and we finally see Bruce Wayne for the first time, he's just sitting alone in his dark conservatory, resting his, chin on his fist, like he's doing a one-man, sort of staging of Hamlet. Well, he just waits for the bat symbol, and then finally it lights up, and he goes about his business. And Keaton is such a good choice for this role. I've wondered sometimes if they ever approached him about getting jacked for it, or if him and Burton never even discussed it, because he is very average physically.
Yeah.
And Batman shouldn't be. Obviously he's like, supposed to be this formidable dude, but like. Mm-hmm. Michael Keaton has a natural weirdness to him. There's kind of like this menace about him that defies the need for physicality. Almost like Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. You know what I mean? Like, I actually think Christian Bale has something similar to him, but they made him jacked anyway, which is fine too.
Yeah, I always find his facial expressions. He has these eyebrows that are just captivating.
Yeah,
like, yeah, I always found that for me, Keaton was the perfect Batman. And, most of that was because, like I mentioned, like I grew up with the first Batman on VHS, and I just, that's who I associate with Batman. He's mysterious and he's smooth and he's convincing. And like, even when he's with Bruce Wayne, you want to get nuts. Let's get nuts, He's great. He's we love him, man, and you need to be able to play both characters, right? And that's why, that's what you say. Like Bale has those elements too, right? Because Bruce Wayne is as important as being able to play Batman, right? So.
That's right. No, that's absolutely right. And and Keaton makes some, there's some interesting choices in this. Like when he first meets Selena Kyle, like he's kind of awkward and stuff like that, which, is cool. Like it's a nice sort of side to see of Bruce Wayne. And, I think there are detractors of Keaton as a Batman out there. I disagree soundly. I friggin' love Michael Keaton in this, but we've got one more titan of screen to discuss here. And that is Chris Walken, of course. And,
of course.
There's layers of villainy in this movie. And like we talked about before, like the first Batman was totally binary. It was Batman and Joker. So for this to feel fresh and not to force any of its villains to stack up against Joker, the three-pronged approach was sort of the right one. And so for your third prong of iniquity, you get the avaricious Max Schreck, played by perhaps the most imitated man in Hollywood, Chris Walken. And he's so often imitated, that even the guy playing his son, Chip, does what I would say is actually a pretty good son of Walken voice. You go, Dad, save yourself, go. Like, he just, the actor who plays Chip, Andrew Brianarski, I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sure, but he had a bit of a run after this. He would play Zangief in the Jean-Claude Van Damme Street Fighter adaptation. And he would play Leatherface in 2 installments of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even popping up in an episode of Firefly, the short-lived Joss Whedon show of great cult popularity. So Chip, he does great work here. He does, Dad, save yourself,
Chip.
And,
hilarious character actor. Like you just kind of pull out, there's another character actor I noticed. In the very beginning, there's a kid with the paper boy. Who's the paperboy in the film, who's kind of comes up in a couple scenes. And I was like, man, he looks so familiar. And I was like, he's a McPoyle twin from It's Always Sunny. But
Oh
then I
my
looked into it,
God.
but it's not Liam and it's not Ryan, but he's in an episode. He is in an episode of It's Always Sunny where he plays Lion McPoyle in the McPoyles versus Ponderosa, the trial of the century. So I was like,
Amazing.
he looks so much like a McPoyle. I was like, it has to be. And the funny thing is Danny DeVito obviously is Frank Reynolds on It's Always Sunny. So that's but the guy who plays the paper boy, he's kind of like the bit McPoyle. His name is Sean Whalen. Sean Whalen sounds like a Newfoundlander's name, but he's one of the tornado trackers in Twister. So we did Twister a few months back on the podcast.
Oh, he's one of the unimportant parts of the crew. Like, is he?
Correct.
Does he read the map or something?
Yeah.
He
Amazing.
interprets the data.
Yeah, he's great. He's wonderful. But back to Walken. I mean, this is classic Walken, and he gives the looks and the squints of his eyes and just the tone he delivered. It's like Walken is Walken in everything, and he's just so captivating. I mean, like that scene where he's with Bruce Wayne is so. He's just so peak Walken. I love the power surplus. Bruce, shame on you. No such thing. Yeah. No one can have too much power. Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed like Batman? Like, I mean, come on. He's great.
Yeah, it's so great. It's so great.
Wonderful.
I absolutely love that, man. And I mean, it's there's so much to laugh at in this movie.
Yeah, that's so good too. I think it's not trying to be unironically funny. Like, I think it's trying to be like, I think he's trying to be funny. Burton is. Like a lot of it.
Yeah, I think he is at parts too. And I just sort of closing up on Walken. There was a bit of there's some stuff like the dialogue in this movie is super smart and comes at you pretty fast. Like I didn't notice a lot of it. Like and there's even like when he's talking to Oswald about kind of where he basically wants him to cause havoc, so they have an issue to come at the mayor with. He invokes the Reichstag fire, which is like just a little historical event which sort of served a similar purpose for Hitler in Nazi Germany back in the 30s before he rose to supreme executive powers. And just little things, little smart little inclusions that Burton makes in the dialogue. Really, just really good and really well delivered by Walken. There is a scene though, so. When Penguin is delivering his speech, his mayoral stock is rising, and he's given a speech there on the steps of City Hall or whatever, and then somehow Batman and Alfred hijack the signal and are able to play the recording of Penguin ranting maniacally. I am not an expert here, but I'm pretty sure you cannot hack speakers remotely. Like there wouldn't be connectivity to these devices, yet somehow from the Batcave, they can broadcast in a signal through those speakers and take over the mic. Like, come on,
you could actually probably do it nowadays easier because with like
now
YouTube
you could
and stuff. But like back then, it was all and then he starts DJing it, and it's like, what is happening?
The setup for that, like for Batman to have the presence of mind when the car is being like if the car itself has been hijacked, which they do explain with like a little homing beacon. They give you the technological workaround there for that. But then like for him during that whole thing to have the presence of mind to insert a blank CD and record, what is happening. Yeah. Like I guess presence of mind is his real superpower. I don't know. That was a bit of a stretch for me there.
Yeah, but it's if recent politicians can. Or any indication, people wouldn't switch on them in a dime, right? Like you know what I mean? Like people can be, up on criminal charges and, it doesn't matter. It's like,
say all kinds of outlandish shit.
Exactly. And everybody just hears this one random recording where he's clearly not talking. And it's like, oh, we hate this guy. And then it's like, let's start firing vegetables at him. And it's like, but that's how I know Burton's in on the joke. Cause he puts up the thing and then, the Penguin has the line where he's like, why do they all come with vegetables already? Like, what?
It's like, right,
so we all know it's like, it is all a part of it. So like you said, he's sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, about, certain parts of the film. I feel like anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, they do lean into that silliness, and it is so great because you're watching that and you're like, who would bring tomatoes and cabbage to a
That's
political
right.
speech where they're initially like applauding? Like everyone's there to like, to laud him on. And then, of course it turns on a dime and they just start hurling,
That's right.
rotting vegetables at him. But yeah, there's also, so like, I love that Batman has his own stationery. Like there's that note that he leaves for the Penguin, like telling him that he's prevented the
Yeah.
abduction of the children, and it has the bat symbol at the top. And Batman seems like the first superhero to really understand the importance of branding because, like, he's got bat
He's got
everything. Yeah, and it's all identifiable and trademarked, and smart
man.
because merchandising is really where you make your money, as the executives of this movie really knew, and as we talked about the fallout of with McDonald's and stuff like that, they were not
Yeah,
pleased.
certainly. Oh man, Batman Returns. So yeah, there's there's an interesting part of going back and sort of watching this and talking about it, especially since there's been so many Batmans after this, right? Um,
Hmm.
so so, but it's I think it still holds up, like you said. It still kind of fills that um, the hierarchy of Batman films. Like I could say, just sort of off the top of my head, this would probably rank somewhere in the middle for me when it comes to Batman films. Sort of the Batman. If you take Batman from the first Burton to the Batman now, I would say this kind of plops right in the center for me. I think of where it would land. I don't know for you. How about you? Where would this land, sort of in the hierarchy of Batman films?
Man, yeah, that's a tough one. I had considered it, and I honestly think this might be in a three-way tie for first because I don't know
Oh,
if I could really split it between 1989's Batman, the first Burton, this one, and then The Dark Knight. I think everything else is second to those three. So I would, I give it up for this picture. Like, and again, like it's my personal attachment to it. I think I've got a
yeah.
deep connection to it. So, and I love the characters so much in this. Like, you get a rich ensemble here. Like usually, sometimes when you get an ensemble, there's weak points and there's strong points. You know, um, like if you think about like the Dark Knight, like Aaron Eckhart, get the hell out of here. What's the Gyllenhaal who plays Rachel in it? She's terrible. I don't,
Maggie Gyllenhaal,
Killian Murphy,
the
Maggie
Gyllenhaal.
Gyllenhaal, whatever. Get out of here. I've got a lot. You know what? There's a much longer diatribe I could go into on her and Aaron Eckhart, but I will save that for when we actually review The Dark Knight, which I think we will do it in due course. But Batman Forever had some. You had Jim Carrey, you had Tommy Lee Jones. Some good stuff there. You had Arnie and Uma Thurman in Batman and Robin, but those films themselves were not strong. So in terms of like, if you weigh the
The
aggregate of the
character,
film itself and the cast
right?
and the characters, man, this is so freaking good. So freaking good. So for me, hell of a picture. I watch it at Christmas more often than I don't. So it has that significance for me. So I will say hell of a picture, hell of a Christmas film.
Okay. Yeah, this it's so interesting hearing you kind of talk about that and how the nostalgic feel for it is such an important part for you. I think for
It
me,
is.
that the first Batman, like you said, the '89 Batman with Jack and as the Joker, that is peak Batman for me. Um, and it goes back to, like you said, my childhood and having rewatched that. This one upon rewatch, um, yeah, like I feel like you said, like the comic book sort of aspect of it was so entertaining and fun and wonky and like over the top. I could like let a lot of this stuff go, but I will say it doesn't hold up to the original Batman for me. And like I said, it sort of kind of falls in the middle. I sort of love Dark Knight, love Batman Begins. I think more than this one. Even the new The Batman, I think has great moments. Although I don't know if it has such a strong rewatchability. I think what this one has for it, like you said, are these just great, interesting villains, character portrayals of like, you know, it's like, let's be like crazy over the top with the Penguin. Let's be wonky and weird with Catwoman. So I think those things are really great for it. But yeah, for me, it doesn't hold that nostalgic feel. So not a hell of a picture for me. And then in turn, not a hell of a Christmas movie. But I do think, you know, comparative to like last week and Lethal Weapon, where it was like very definitive, this is not a Christmas movie. I think this is pretty much as close to a Christmas movie as you're going to get when it comes to atypical Christmas movies. So I think it still works like as in the Christmas world of what a Christmas movie is. But I'm not like clamoring to go rewatch Batman Returns again. And I don't think it'll be a number of years probably when I go back and revisit it. So,
right.
But entertaining nonetheless.
Oh man. Absolutely.
Love DeVito, man. I think DeVito's the high point in this film. He has a crazy run of like in the 80s and 90s where it's like did like Twins and he did this and he did what else did he do? He did like a ton of stuff in like around this time that was just like
Twins is another long favorite of mine. Has deep nostalgic roots in my heart. I used to watch the hell out of actually one of my first, I think the first cat I ever named, I named Vinny or Vincent after the Danny DeVito character in Twins. Vincent and Julius were the two characters, Arnie and DeVito, and I loved DeVito so much, so I named my cat after him.
Yeah, he's great, man. Yeah, he has the throw mama from the train. He was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's sort of where you got to start, which was great. Yeah, Junior. That was a terrible film, but
wasn't that also with Arnie?
Yeah. But he's done some bangers, and I mean he's still on Sunny. 20 years later, that show is still going.
Man,
incredible.
His role as Frank Reynolds, it cannot be overstated how incredible that is. Like, it's just so good.
Doesn't care, man. He doesn't care. He'll do it all.
Yeah, it's the best.
Danny DeVito. Okay, so that kind of concludes our little run of atypical Christmas movies, Christmas action movies, we should say, because these are all action movies, which were great to kind of revisit around this time of year. Next week, we are taking a break because it is the holiday season. So this is dropping on Christmas Day. If you feel like you're bored of your family and you don't want to hang out with them and you want to listen to two guys talk about Batman Returns, you're listening to this on Christmas or watching.
Or listen to it with your family. You know,
that's right.
A nice family activity.
Yeah, right when you're carving the turkey, break out the discussion on, Batman Returns. But we're going to take next week off. The last of the year. We haven't missed a week yet this year, and it's going to be New Year's Day. So we'll take it easy, and everybody will be slogged from the holidays. But then we're coming back with a really cool run of films. Dave, do you want to tell everybody what we're starting the year off with in 2025?
Yeah. New year, a time for reflection, I think. And so that is what we are going to do. We are going to be taking a retrospective of the Oscars. And leading up to the Oscars of this coming year, we are going to look at a best picture from each decade every week. And so we've selected we will select a best picture from each decade, talk about that and see how it rates historically. And that will bring us right up to the Oscars of this year.
Yeah. So, we're going to do, the Oscars started, I guess, in the 30s. So
1929, first
29.
Oscars.
Okay. So, I think we'll sort of skip the 20s and 30s, those sort of first formative years.
Right.
Of the Oscars. But then we're going to get started and get cracking in the 40s. So, in the span of the 40s, we'll do, a best picture from the 40s and then the following week from the 50s. And so we have 10 pictures to choose from. So we're going to start with the 40s, obviously, like I just said. And we're going to start with maybe one of the greatest, or people would argue, be the greatest film ever made. and that is Casablanca. Have you ever seen Casablanca, Dave?
I have not, and though
wow.
thanks to pop culture, I'm aware of a lot of things.
Sure.
It's sort of inescapable if you pay attention at all.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of some things, but no, I have not seen it, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah. So we have this kind of run of 9 movies that we're gonna tackle up until the Oscars, and we're gonna start with Casablanca. Casablanca, fabulous movie. So I'm excited to rewatch it. So that'll be sort of the first week into January that we'll drop that. So looking forward to that. So if you guys want to watch something, if you're still listening to this podcast at this point, and you're like, oh, what can I watch next? Watch Casablanca. Okay.
Absolutely. Do it.
All right, sweet. So for David Hollinshurst, my name is Andrew Bartlett, and this has been another episode of Hell of a Picture.
Merry Christmas, everybody.